Welcome to a special edition of Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. Over the past week, several institutions have downgraded the outlook for the Philippines. We spoke with several ambassadors to talk about the international community's view of the Philippines amid governance issues and a corruption scandal. The Australian ambassador to the Philippines, Mark Innes-Brown, still sees a great potential in the partnership of the two countries, including military ties.
Well, Australia and the Philippines have long had a military relationship which dates back to World War II, and in fact just last week I was honoured to participate in two memorial services to mark operations at the end of the war in Tacloban and also in the Surigao Strait. So since then we've had cooperative activities. In 1995 we signed a cooperation agreement, and we've as a reflection of the expansion of defence ties in the meeting between our Defence Minister Richard Marles and the Philippines Defence Secretary just in August, we've decided to, we've signed a statement of intent to negotiate an updated Defence Cooperation Agreement which reflects the enormous expansion of activity.
Took so long, since 1995.
Well, it was working well, but there's obviously a lot going on, and we decided we want to have more ambition and do more together.
That ambition and doing more together, to what would you attribute that, the motivations, and what do we get out of it for both nations?
Well, we're partners, and we're wanting to do more together to promote regional security, which is obviously a cornerstone of economic prosperity. So we've identified a number of areas. We want to be more interoperable. There's other areas that we can work together. So we're looking to do more.
What sort of areas then? I mean, we've just conducted the largest joint military exercise maybe about 2 months ago.
That's right.
Exercise Alon. What did we learn from there, and where do we go from here then? So
that was the second iteration of Exercise Alon, which happens every 2 years, and this exercise was an expansion of the inaugural operation, and it had cooperative activities in the air, on the land and at sea, and it was focused on working better together and learning those lessons. So I'm sure as we move forward to the next iteration in 2 years there'll be further activity, but there's a constant amount of cooperative activity, joint training exercises that go on throughout the year, which I've sort of noticed since I've been here.
And also military infrastructure projects, because as I understand, as we thresh out the Defense Cooperation Agreement, there are several military infrastructure projects that we're hoping to build together. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's an interest in doing more in that area. Yes, there was that was discussed during the Defence Ministers meeting.
What sort of areas, so, and which points of maybe locations in the Philippines?
Well, that's still being negotiated between the parties, so I won't engage in speculation, but yeah, certainly that's an area that we wish to do more together, as well as the operational cooperation.
As that involves infrastructure projects, and given the governance challenges we face now, what sort of impact do you think that might have at the pace at which you'd want to engage with the Philippines in terms of defense cooperation?
Well, I don't think that's a factor at this stage, Cathy. I think we're moving ahead in that. We've got some senior officials visiting shortly, and they'll be taking forward those discussions as a follow-up to the ministerial discussions here that happened in Manila in August.
And in fact, we're trying to beat the deadline for the ASEAN hosting, because that's a big part of the cooperation, isn't it, to be able to help out. Do you think the timelines are still intact for that, for the Philippine hosting of the ASEAN?
Well, I haven't heard anything to the contrary. I understand there's going to be a large briefing next month where the Philippines government will tell all partners, including Australia, what their plans are for next year.
All right. Apart from defense cooperation, there's also trade and investment,
sure,
and in various industries. What's the status of that, of the missions that we were hoping to bring in, given the governance challenges that we face? Is that kind of slowed, or maybe even been delayed to next year?
No, there's no delay at all, in fact. So we've been working for the last 2 years. We promulgated a Southeast Asia economic strategy, and I was fortunate enough to be the lead author of this report when I was based in Australia. And the objective of this is to promote increased trade and investment between Australia and Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. And we've been working on that since. And we've supported a number of projects here in the Philippines. There's quite good trade growth as well. But just this week, I might add, as a sign of our ongoing commitment to this work, the Prime Minister Albanese announced when in KL 2 new significant investments to promote Australian investment in the region. One was $175 million in an investment fund run by IFM Investors, which is a major Australian institutional investor, and the other was $50 million in a fund set up by Plenary, which is a public-private partnership fund to promote investment. So there's been no slowing. In fact, the government's pushing ahead strongly.
And how do you sort that out? I mean, you've promulgated part of the economic strategy there, as you've shown us. How do you contextualize political risk? I mean, a lot of other ASEAN nations are facing it as well. We're not alone. But how do you contextualize that and still, come out thinking that the Philippines is a good place to invest?
Well, we take a long-term view, and I think most investors do take a long-term view. When we embarked on this project, as the title says, we're looking at the region out to 2040. So that's quite an expansive time, but we wanted to take a strategic approach to this, and investment decisions do take a long-term view, I'm sure. So that's the approach we're taking.
And is that the reason why it's defense cooperation first? Because we want to maintain peace, stability, and make sure rules of based order is instituted in the contested waters before business can really be made.
The two are not sequenced that way. We're pushing our bilateral cooperation here. There's a number of key strands. One of them is trade and investment, one of them is defence, one of them is civil maritime, and another is our our development cooperation program. So we're pushing forward on all of them at the same time. One is not contingent on the other.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. The Philippines and New Zealand earlier this year announced both nations are working to elevate bilateral relations to a comprehensive partnership ahead of the 60th year of diplomatic ties in 2026. I spoke with New Zealand Ambassador to the Philippines, Dr. Catherine McIntosh, about this partnership. Here's a portion of my interview.
Well, what we're seeing is since this goal was set, we have seen two-way trade increase by 23%. So we're already almost halfway towards that 50% goal. And this is an increase in trade in both directions, both in goods and services. And in regards to the matters of domestic matters for the Philippines, well, I must say that in terms of the ASEAN chairship, we're already seeing great excitement from New Zealand businesses about the opportunity that offers. The spotlight will be on the Philippines, and I already have companies saying and planning how much they'd love to visit the Philippines next year to explore opportunities.
But the business missions, I noticed that there had been a lot of business missions, inbound, outbound, in the past year. How have those gone on, given the concerns that have been raised and also the protest rallies happening? Have those continued, or have they taken a pause for now?
We're very much looking forward to 2026 being a big year for both countries, and there's concrete interest from businesses. We've seen also a recent delegation from the geothermal industry, and this is a part of the economic relationship of the Philippines that is long-standing. It goes back to the 1960s, but is vibrant and modern today, with that trade and services, with expertise by engineers and others coming to the Philippines to invest and knowledge in the further evolution of renewable energy here. But it's something that's actually two-way. The knowledge is shared, and the innovation of the Philippines in that sector inspires New Zealand as well.
They're not concerned about the governance challenges? I mean, what do you tell them to assure them that we're in for the long haul? I mean, what sort of conversations are you having right now with prospective and current Kiwi businesses here?
Well, there's been no concerns directly raised, actually, so there's strong confidence in the Philippines' economic growth. It's really impressive GDP stats despite the revision, and lots of opportunities, say in agricultural trade and services, many sectors.
Despite the revision in economic growth, I mean, that's one of the highlights that the Prime Minister's raised when he was here, that we're one of the fastest growing.
Absolutely.
But now the trajectory is slowing.
Yes, but there's great things ahead. We're confident of that. And in fact, New Zealand has a long-standing partnership in governance. We always affirm good governance in the region, and even in ease of doing business. New Zealand consistently ranks top in the world globally. And so, for example, you referred to ATA earlier, and we have a great partnership with ATA. A New Zealand company, Creative HQ, actually worked with ATA around innovation. And we know that going digital creates transparency, addresses issues, and it puts people at the heart of government services.
So safe to say that we're doing well in the ease of doing business. It's something that's driving Kiwi investors to the Philippines.
That's right. It's a great partnership in this area.
We've got the Security Alliance and then the trade. We've talked about that. Some of the investments, but you got to let us know on the interest. If indeed 2026 will be a year that we celebrate 60 years of partnership, what can we expect in the way of investments from New Zealand businesses?
Well, we look forward to the engagement, all the ASEAN meetings that are being planned. It's ongoing things in various sectors. I'll just mention even in the weather. In terms of, we have a New Zealand partner called, or company called Metro Weather, and they are providing weatherscape software and weather projections, even here at TV1, One News, I should say, TV5.
There is a roadmap that the president had talked about, and that was in the final stages. What is the status of that in the language so that we could get that comprehensive partnership going?
Yeah, we have a great roadmap, which we expect to be announced shortly. And it goes through those 4 key pillars that I mentioned to you, Cathy, which is driving momentum in the bilateral relationship.
Now, trade with New Zealand, there's been some mention of interesting fruits. One of them had to be durian, that fleshy, smelly fruit. Have you tried it?
I have not yet. It's famous for its smell.
It is.
But the closest I've got to recently is durian chocolate, which was very nice.
And there's a huge demand for durian chocolate in New Zealand?
Well, there's certainly the export of frozen durian. I tried the durian chocolate here, so I'll have to see if it's back home. But certainly with the growing Filipino population in New Zealand, there'll be increased demand for these fantastic Filipino products. Do you know, in 2001, we had 10,000 Filipinos, and now we have over 110,000, making an incredible contribution to society and our economy. And of just a country of 5 million people, that's a lot.
And also there's an interest in onions, I believe.
Yes.
Has that already started?
Well, we have the agreement of the Philippines government to resume trade in onions. So we so look forward to having onions on supermarket shelves in the Philippines soon.
All right, we got about a minute, and I know that you've been here for about a year and 6 months, and you wanted to give it a go and deliver a message in Filipino.
Thank you, Cathy. Magandang umaga. Taos puso po akong nagpapasalamat sa matatag na pagkakaibigan at ugnayan ng Pilipinas at New Zealand. Kayo mismo ang ugnayan, kayo mismo ang puso ng ugnayan ito. Magkita-kita po lahat tayo sa ika-6 na pong anibersaryo ng ating masayang pagkaibigan sa susunod na taon. Kita-kits po.
Coming up, the European Chamber of Commerce sees trade and investment activity will pick up in the coming years. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to a special edition of Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Net inflows for foreign direct investments for September plunged to its lowest monthly level in 5 years. But a business sentiment survey report by the European Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines shows about 8 of 10 European companies operating in the Philippines expect trade and investment activity to increase over the next 4 years. I spoke with the Vice President of the ECCP, Lars Wittig, who says that even if there's also a drop in investment pledges for November, businesses here are performing well.
Well, basically, the sentiment is very strong still, and that is based on the fact that the businesses are still showing very good performance. In the most recent year, 2/3 of all respondents have done improved, better business results, and half of the 2/3 of the respondents basically said that the improvement in business performance in the Philippines was higher than in the rest of the region.
To what would you attribute that resilience? Because we've had these corruption allegations as now showing up in the data, and that survey that you conducted was about the same time that the data started to show these corruption allegations.
Yes, and no doubt it is raising concerns. It's being watched carefully. It's something that we're all very much aware of, including the foreign community and those considering to further invest. Nevertheless, when you look at the measurements and the safeguards that have been put in place at this point, assuming that we will see more like what already has come from BSP, what already have been demonstrated by BIR, where they have put on hold all field audits, then we need to see more of that, and then we need to see a speed in infrastructure investments, something that obviously also have been slowed down, hurting from all the concerns after the flood scandals.
Well, sentiment is one. The other is the actual investments and also expansion plans. So to what extent did that affect the forward-looking plans of European businesses here?
The expansion plans are still intact, so they are still ongoing.
For all sectors?
Basically across all sectors and across the country. This survey, keep in mind, is across all sectors, all industries, but also it's national. So, it's not just the talk of town in Manila. There are many opportunities, there are many fundamentals that remain very strong. We just have to ensure that the safeguards continue to be implemented for, in lack of a better word, whatever reset that is currently in the works. And then I actually think that we can go a jolly season, but also a year ahead.
Nobody hit pause during these past few months, hitting pause on investment pledges or investment plans, expansion plans?
We have not seen that. What is existing is still going strong, and there are still success stories in sustainable energy, green energy investment, offshore wind farms, etc. Demonstrate and prove that when the government open the doors and make improves on the ease of doing business, then things also happen.
Well, let me pick up on that reset that you mentioned, because there are many forms of resets when it comes to escalating political risk. And I know that you've just come from Bangladesh, and you've had some experience in Sri Lanka. Both countries have undergone real big major resets that have impacted business confidence and even pulling out of your own business at IWG. And give us some context on how we compare with these kinds of countries.
Yes, I'm glad you asked. First of all, yes, I'm regional in my day job, so to speak, with IWG Reaches, Flexible Workspace. And one thing that all countries have in common, even with my home country, Denmark, is when you go and speak to people on the ground, what we all have in common is we are quite cynical about our own government, our own people, our own market. I guess that's natural for all, but what I perhaps can share a little bit today is the perspective when I compare the different markets. And while we feel that it is a big burden, what is going on right now in the Philippines, much worse has happened historically or in very recent times in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. In Bangladesh, there was a very violent revolution in July last year. The Prime Minister fled, has just been sentenced to death in absentia. And from my many meetings and conversations in Dhaka, they're very positive. Most of them are also ready to move forward, but only after the hopefully successful elections happening in February. So they are like in the process, in the eye of the storm. Sri Lanka, for example, the peak of their storm that was in 2022. Government fled MIF came in and took controls, inflation 70%, lack of medicine, fuel, power, what you name it, they were lacking it. They are also recovering very strongly. It's not where it was before, but it's coming back, and I'm very happy that I'm there, we are there with IWG. And then there are the markets that are in the extreme other end of the scale, where corruption is the least. I can mention three immediately, the number 1, 2, 3 in the world. Philippines is not among them. We are simply too populated. I would say trust comes with small populations. It can be controlled and managed. It is Singapore, it's New Zealand, where I also went recently, and it's Denmark, my native country.
Trust, very important point that you make, and the recovery expectations that you have on the survey. You've made a mention of the major reset and where the Philippines stands. You're not pulling out, you haven't hit pause, but what needs to happen to make sure that investments from the European community continue and even grow well into 2026?
What we need to see is a strong reset, very strong safeguards being implemented. We're only seeing the initial few. And what we need to see is that they very quickly get the momentum going again on the infrastructure, because right now, the less concrete that's being poured, the more of a slowdown in the GDP. But overall, the fundamentals are very, very healthy. The GDP, the BSP financials, government deficit, everything is actually extremely healthy. We measure very well by any global standards. And what again, in my day business, we rely on local investors, and we've never signed so many deals with local investors as we have done this calendar year. Actually, we have signed for 50 new locations, each $1 million plus US dollar local investments.
And that's even after the corruption scandals
Absolutely.
came through.
This is ongoing because this is national. And this is a type of business that serves multiple industries. So there's plenty of momentum. Look at where our revenue is coming otherwise. It's coming from overseas remittances, just like Bangladesh, by the way. Second, BPOs. And here we are different than many other countries because BPO revenues, there's no real cost of goods, right? Whereas Bangladesh, it's garment, 60% of their exports, actually you can deduct import in order to make the goods. So very strong in that regard. Very young population. We are at a sweet point the next 20 years. The population will still increase, but fertility rate is down to only 2.0, which means that we are going to have a booming productive population, which is very much needed. We have the lowest average age of any country that I do business in, only 26. Increasing, but it's increasing everywhere. Vietnam, it's already over 30.
We got about a minute to go. I wanted you to give a message from the European community. If you were to speak to the political leadership now, what would be the key message in the immediate?
We need to see the action. We need to see the safeguards. It has to be tangible. It has to be felt. It has to be shown. And then, of course, I know they will do this. They need to continue. They're going to be in Brussels in January. The free trade agreement is going to be pivotal in order to further the economy here and the sentiment of the European investors and for the mutual benefit of mutual trade.
And that is it for today's special edition of Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Kapatid, we are one news, all sides, all the time. Happy holidays.